Good day, Dr. Hollen Meyer. Thank you for joining
Hi.
us finally.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm excited to finally get this started.
It's amazing that you have been so accommodating. We tried last week, it didn't work, and this week we had our challenges, but we finally have you, and we are grateful for it.
Thank you, and I'm very grateful to be on, and nothing's going to stop us. So let's rock and roll.
So please give us an introduction of who you are, what you've been doing, and how you go about doing stuff, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So I am Dr. Hollen Meyer. I'm a chiropractor, and I have been a chiropractor since 2006. But I've been in the chiropractic world for over 20 years. I was an office manager working while I was an undergrad at 17 years old and just kind of developed from there. And how I got into chiropractic is I just saw people enter the office, maybe grumpy in pain, and they left the office with a smile. And I knew something magical was happening in that room. And I just wanted to be part of having an impact in people's lives. And the more I really understood what chiropractic was, like I didn't even get how big it is, which we're going to really get into today. But yeah, I practiced in Frisco, Texas for over a decade, and have since moved to a different city. And now we're doing some things online. I'm helping doctors and entrepreneurs, and even helping the general public in a program called Own Your Health Revolution. So we are just taking our impact and continuing to expand our reach. So thanks for having me on.
That is amazing. I'm so excited to have you on. As you know, we started the interviews and the podcasts on the basis of trying to inform the general public on making better informed decisions when it comes to their health and wellness.
Absolutely. And better is good. It's subjective, but informed is the key there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So tell us, chiropractic, why do you love it? Why do you think it's totally transforming lives and habits and people?
Right. So when I got into chiropractic, I only understood the physical component to it as far as the symptomatic relief. Like you're in pain, it's for neck and back pain. And so you go to the chiropractor. And so that's how I got started with it. But I saw working in the office, I was able to see their mood change and their lives begin to transform. So I did understand that there was something very special and unique about it. So I wanted to learn more. And throughout the learning process and becoming a student and being in practice, and just everything you learn about chiropractic along the way, I realized that that's just the tip of the iceberg as far as the pain component and the structural component. It's important. The structural component is important, so I don't want to take away from that. But if you think about it in a more global component, it's affecting the brain and spinal cord, the nervous system, which is the master controller of the entire body. So if you can have an impact at the root source and the root cause, then of course it can have a cellular impact. It'll impact every aspect of your life, from your digestion to your mood, your outlook, and there's so much more than just neck and back pain. So chiropractic to me is not it's not something extra. It is the vital necessity. It is the one thing that we should be doing. If we don't do anything else in chiropractic, that's what has the greatest impact on our bodies and in our health, seeking health and seeking optimal health. Chiropractic should definitely be part of that. And also in my process of being a chiropractor, I also learned that adding some things to that will also help us achieve optimal health and wellness along with that. But if there's one center point, it's chiropractic.
Well, it's amazing that I always say that chiropractic is a lifestyle, not so much of a treatment.
Right.
And
yes.
There's more into this, and most of the patients or our practice members, when I explain to them, I always say You don't wait till your tooth starts rotting before you start brushing your teeth.
Right.
So
Yes.
why would you stop or, wait till you're in pain before you seek treatments or seek a chiropractic adjustment and chiropractic lifestyle? Because truly it's empowering you to be a best that you can be in your physical and emotional sense.
Exactly. Yes. I always like to kind of go back to mind, body, and spirit as the pillars of our health. And that can mean a bunch of different things. But when it comes to the body, chiropractic has such a global effect on the body. It's a simple thing, and it's amazing how simple it is, but how complex and how global the impact is on our bodies and our connections and our brain function and absolutely every component in our body. And it's not, if you wait till you're in crisis care management, it takes so much more effort, visits, and money to get to a place of wellness than if you jump in on the wellness component. Just like with the teeth, the dental analogy that you used. If you wait until your tooth is rotted, you know how much work that's going to be, as opposed to just simply brushing your teeth and flossing, and getting a cleaning.
Well, obviously, this is a whole component of a lifestyle, clean eating, clean being positive, and mind, body, soul that you so rightly referred to. Now, we're going to tackle this three part, the mind, body, and the soul. For the body, we discussed, chiropractic treatments. What else would you do for body when it comes specifically to nutrition?
Yes, so I was also a functional medicine practitioner, and when it comes to the body, so nutrition and exercise, right? So I always call that fuel and fitness. So whenever we talk about the body and nutrition, there's a few key things that we all need to be doing, and they're simple, so simple, there's no reason for you not to do it, but so simple that sometimes it's difficult to do, like getting enough water intake.
Yeah.
Half your body weight in ounces of water, unless you have some sort of kidney issue that your doctor recommends something different. But water intake is vital. It's a necessity. And I also, whenever I teach people about nutrition and that sort of thing, I always like to keep things simple as well. And so sometimes, and it depends on where you're at in the gradient of your health journey. But if we're talking to some folks that are either new into this lifestyle or falling off the wagon, or life can sometimes get busy. I always say, eat something green every day. Because it's amazing how we're not doing that, and it can easily happen. So eating something green every single day is a good start as well. I love green smoothies. But yeah, so in doing that, and I think it's also important to get your lab work done. It's not always about how you feel, but what your lab work says, and allowing whether it's functional medicine, a chiropractor, somebody who knows an understanding in not just lab values, which means things are really bad and you might need medication. How can we determine and identify some of these things that are gravitating in that direction, but they're not at crisis care management yet? So we can use the same approach in looking at lab work and inflammatory markers as well.
That is amazing that you brought it up. I actually was going to ask it, but thank you for bringing it up. It's amazing that how technology has moved forward with this whole thing. So you can literally watch and measure your well-being and the state of your homeostasis with the lab work.
Yes, it's amazing. And like you said, with the technology, we can even predict the future with genetic testing and that sort of things. And we can change things. Just because I have some people that would come to me and say, well, my whole family is type 2 diabetic, or they're overweight and obese. So that's just kind of the cards I'm dealt. And I'm sitting here going, you can change anything and you can change everything. And that's kind of where the mindset starts coming in, and you really have to start thinking outside the box and taking ownership of your health and not playing the victim. And that's kind of a theme throughout all of my teachings as well, is taking ownership of where you're at in life right now and what is going to be like in the future, and really, really teaching people to visualize that and start creating their desires.
Well, Dr. Meyer, the issue is, it's amazing how everything that I want to ask, you come up with it. That's amazing. It's the mindset. It's something that people, I'm sure you have had the practice members come to you and say, Doc, I just can't stop it.
Yeah.
And I can't stop eating this kind of food, or I can't stop eating that kind of food. There was a study out that they said the fortified corn syrup has been added to many of the foods as we know it. And it may be one of the largest inflammatory causing agents as we know it in our North American diet. Mm-hmm. So, Doc, when I come to you and I say, I can't stop eating sugar, what's your advice to me?
So first, I like to identify why that's the case. And sometimes, depending on what the attraction is or what you can't break, I want to make sure there's not a nutritional deficiency that's landing you into that direction as well. And so once we get past that component, then we start kind of talking about their connection to their relationship with that particular food. Because sometimes it's just kind of what they've always done when stress comes into play. They gravitate towards sugar.
Stress food, it's stress eating, yeah.
Yes, and that's what a lot of it is. And here in America, we sedate ourselves with food so much. And sometimes it's a coping mechanism. Sometimes it's what we were taught to do when we're young as well. When we're sick, our parents might go get us ice cream. Like, that doesn't make any sense, but it made us smile in that moment, as a child. And so sometimes it's some things that are learned behavior as well. And something that I'm really loving and getting into and working with is this component in healthcare. So in chiropractic offices, a lot of times we do talk nutrition, and a lot of times we get pushed in this corner of helping them break past these barriers and these mental things. And I love the concept of adding even a therapist into the equation of our full circle spectrum of healthcare, so that they can then help us get past these internal emotional barriers that keep limiting our success as well.
Amazing. And it's what stops us from greatness is always our own thoughts and our own behaviors.
Exactly. The things, the tapes that replay in our head, and a lot of times I have people do a journal, and whatever food that they're calling their name, write out their feelings about it. What's the truth about it? Just kind of journal about it. And so that they can, sometimes they need to come to their own realization as to where is this actually coming from? Because it's not usually about the food or a lot of times it is up here, but to tell the patient it's all in your head, that's just not helpful. Mm-hmm. And me, I was 30 pounds overweight at one time as I was learning about all of this stuff through prior to chiropractic school. I was overweight myself, and I've used some examples because that's what I learned to do. When I was stressed or not feeling well, I utilized food to either sedate, cope, or make myself feel better in my head, and just to realize and write down how I felt after I ate that. There was a small moment of gratification, but there was a longer moment of I actually felt worse. Mm-hmm. If I really looked at it, like I actually felt less energy. I just felt dragged down, and if I really looked at how my stomach and digestion felt, it was worse. But that little tiny moment of gratification I was taught means more. And so by really writing down and really identifying all the things of how this makes you feel and kind of keeping a journal in that fashion has been able to help people really break through that control of you and that hold on you.
You know, it's amazing. Once you transfer the power from the object to
Yes.
the person, the whole paradigm changes.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have had when people say, you know, I have to have it. I always use the example that, listen, you woke up this morning and drove here. You chose not to hit the other cars with your car. So you made a choice to have this food or to take this food out of your calorie intake is a choice. It's easily made. You just need a bit more connections and positive connections. And you know, I always am for you can catch more flies with honey than vinegar.
Yes.
So it's easier to help people when they want to be helped.
Right. And speaking of people wanting to be helped, before I even get into instructions of how we're going to do this, I always like to get layers and layers deep as to why are they even approaching me in the first place? Why are they even seeking help? And I like to get, honestly, 5, 6 layers deep into why. So the first why might be to lose weight. Okay, that can be motivating, but that usually isn't going to stick around for a long time because even though they may have set out to lose 20 pounds, maybe 12 pounds is good enough whenever 12 pounds comes along because the trigger is actually more weighted, you know, in that moment. So we need to get deeper into why. And I like to get 5 to 7 layers deep on why. And if you can get to a why that makes you choke up a little bit or teary-eyed, where that weight loss becomes actually to save my marriage. It's not really about the weight loss. It's about how I feel about me so that I can be involved and present, or in your kid's life and be the parent that you want to be. Or sometimes it's just to love yourself. And we get layers deep, and sometimes it's in their history of layers. And it's not designed to be a therapist in any moment, but just to ask good questions so that they arrive at something so compelling that they're going to hold on to.
That's well said. And I always say that we are not therapists, but when the questions are properly asked, we can formulate the referral, if needs to be, much more efficiently than, you know, you having to interview the patient 3, 4, 5 times. Now,
right.
When it comes to mind and trying to break those barriers, and I always say chains of support, because we think they are supporting us, but they're not. They're just holding us down.
Right.
What do you do? What kind of technique do you use?
So there's a couple people's work that I've dug into, and Byron Katie is one of those. And one of the books I like that she has is Loving What Is. And so it really helps you identify the trigger, but also asks appropriate questions. And it's a journey she takes you on, asking appropriate questions so that you can understand the truth of what that trigger is and is doing, as opposed to just how it makes you feel and the story that you've wrapped around that trigger. You know, because we all have stories in every aspect of our life, and we all have triggers in every aspect of our life as well, because sometimes it's the food that's triggering. Sometimes it might be a stress, you know, there might be a test, or there might be a fight with your spouse or something that's the trigger. And she really helps you, take you on a journey to understand the truth of that trigger and redirect the story that you started to believe around that trigger, and just recreate a more truthful story for yourself. So Byron Katie is one of them. And also, I'm sure you know Joe Dispenza. He's a chiropractor, and he really works on that mindset and just really formulating and creating your future in the life that you want it to be.
Well, that's picturing what you want and where you're going and imagining your end point as being the success that you're seeking. And difficulties are not truly, they are in the way, they're more of being on the way to your
Right.
final point. It just changes the whole outlook. I was one of the points that I was reading over the weekend is that most of the people who sabotage or don't succeed trying to achieve a goal is when they reward themselves too early in the process.
Mhm.
For example, they used the weight loss example. They said they put a weight goal of, say, 20 pounds. And they lost the 20 pounds and they said, well, at least now I deserve to have a cheesecake, for example. The
Mhm.
cheesecake becomes the sabotage.
Yes.
So then it just keeps building on it.
Right. And something just to kind of build on that, something that I try to teach my patients as well is because sometimes, and this was this was how it was for me, is I never rewarded myself. So that's the other end of the spectrum. But we also try to, before they get there, we identify, okay, what's the goal and then what's the reward. And so we want to make sure that the reward is something that's empowering them as opposed to the example that you gave, which is sabotaging them.
That's right.
Right? So whenever they get to this point, sometimes it's sign up for a 5K if that's what they want to do, or then they'll hire a personal trainer, or then they'll, I don't know, there's so many different things, but they might get a specific blender or the Instapot, something to help build them, or go on a date with themselves or get a pedicure. So something that actually will enhance their performance and the lifestyle that they are choosing.
Which is amazing because rewarding yourself, I mean, getting healthier, the best reward I see it that it could have is longer, happier life spent with the people who you love the most.
Right.
And truly serving your purpose in life, which for all of us could be different. But I find myself every morning waking up and saying, what am I going to do today? Who am I going to change today? Who is going to come to my life, making me understand humanity a little better? So I look at it that way, which I'm sure you have the same outlook for it too.
Extremely similar, yes.
Now, we went through the body and the mind. Now, for the soul, what is it? Does Dr. Meyer have a routine that she does in the mornings to get her in tune with her, everyday work?
Yes. So when it comes to soul and being, I think of that as kind of two things, like interconnected with yourself, because so many of us are not connected internally, even with our own self, with our head and our heart and our body, but also connected to God and that higher power and whatever that means for each individual person. But for me, I do start and end my day, and even in the middle sometimes, with prayer. And that's something that's extremely important and helpful to me. Something that I have really worked on over the past 4 or 5 years is more meditation. So being for me, it's still in prayer, but being quiet. Like, don't do all the talking. Like, just let the download and receive. And that's very difficult for me to quiet my mind. In the beginning and doing it, I felt like I was wasting time, not doing anything. Like, I needed to be doing, and being task oriented. So for me, also getting into more of a meditation, just a stillness, has been quite a journey of learning and practice. So that has been something that has been extremely helpful to me, get connected with myself, but also with the higher power and God. And for me, it's Jesus. But so that's been a huge thing for me, and just that allows you to be able to discern that voice of God. And because so often we're looking for signs and outer signs of what to do, as opposed to our own intuition, and as opposed to just being still in the presence of yourself and of God without distraction to really discern that voice and what the future looks like and the truth of the past, and even forgetting those things and just being in the present. That has been something that's been a practice of mine that I've really worked on over the last couple of years. So that's been a huge thing as far as helping me not be so worried about things that have happened and be so worried about the future and things that oftentimes never happen, you know, but we're so stuck in that crisis care management and just be present. So those are some things that have helped work from a soul standpoint.
Now, Dr. Meyer, just because you brought the stress point on and how devastating it is to our physical body and also our emotional status, can you please enlighten us a bit more about when you are stressed, what happens physiologically and psychologically to one?
Sure. So from a stress component, a big thing that we focus on is what the adrenal glands are doing to our body. And the adrenal glands, they're small, they're little tiny triangular shaped right up on top of the kidneys. And it's basically our stress gland. And I often call it the gland. People get a kick out of that because they don't really expect to hear that from me. But just to get my point across, it's our stress gland. And anytime that happens, we have a cascade of hormones that flood our system. And it's designed for us way back in the day. If we were approached with a lion or a tiger, we can get the heck out of there, you know? Not all the time, but in our lifestyle as we know it in America, it's go, go, go. It's never enough. It's always, we need to be doing more, work more with our kids, you know, just going to school and having an extracurricular activity is not enough. Like our kids are going from the time they get up till 9 o'clock at night, and oh, we might squeeze dinner in. And it's a bizarre trap that we've caught ourselves up into. And we do that even in our career. And so from that component, what the adrenal glands, they impact, first of all, the hormone cascade of events. It also impacts our circadian rhythm, which is basically when our body innately knows when to go to sleep and when to be awake. And so our sleep patterns are disrupted, and then we do more things to interrupt the sleep pattern, which then has an impact on the adrenal gland. So it just becomes this cyclical thing from a physiological standpoint and an emotional standpoint, because then we're drained during the day and we can't do that. So then we think we need coffee and Coke, you know, sodas to give us that boost. And that drains our adrenals even more in our mind. And it just becomes, this is how the American way is, right? And it's absolutely insane and crazy. But for us, when we talk about stress, we bring it back to the adrenal glands and ways that, okay, so how do we stop the cycle? How do we minimize this? What can we do? And that brings me also back to the meditation and prayer as well. Yoga is a great thing. Just breathing, just sitting still and breathing is fantastic. Journaling is a great way. Identifying triggers and then redirecting how you handle those triggers is huge. And also understanding where your strength comes from and knowing that there's a higher power and not putting so much stress and pressure on yourself and just kind of giving up the things that you cannot control and just focusing on the things you can control and get an action list together and just work on it one step in front of the other. So that's kind of the overall picture.
Well, the funny that you bring up about stress, that unfortunately in today's society, we have forgotten that we work to live, not live to work.
Right.
And it's almost such a go, go, go. By end of the day, we always forgotten what is all this go is all about. And,
yes.
And the funny part is one thing that we needs us grounded and connected, which is that emotional connection to people around us, to humanity, to our family, our lives, our city, our community is all forgotten because we're stressed about so much others.
That's right. And that's also what leads us into burnout in any profession, you know, and I was a victim to that in some degree because it was so much about a check off list and achievements. You know, we did that. And I looked up one day and I was like, is this it? Like I reached my high goal and I was like, what's next? Like, what's next? You know? And I kind of looked up and realized I left the house at 4 a.m. and I didn't get home until 8 p.m. And that, like you said, there's so much consumed by work, which I loved. And I actually, lucky for you and me, like we have, I feel like the best profession on the planet where we actually interact with people on a daily basis, you know, like we get to develop those relationships, but it's draining at the same time too, because you just pour into people all day long. And so a lot of times we kind of looked up and we realized that we work. We might have money, but is that actually fulfillment? Mm-hmm. Is that actually fulfillment? Whenever you look back on your life, do you have a list of achievements or did you have impact on people's lives? And we can't forget about those that are closest to us, and we can't take them for granted. You know, if you have kids and you work all day to provide for the family, what the kids remember most is their time spent with you. Mm-hmm. You know, they don't remember the shirt you bought them.
No, absolutely not. You're completely true. The issue is that in reduction of stress and trying to live in today should be one that, you know, people should practice a bit more. I often tell people that worry all you want. Mm-hmm. Imagine thinking about a leaf on a tree. Worry about it not falling or worry about it growing a flower. It's not going to do it. It will do it when it has to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So all you do is add extra stress to your body, make yourself sick, and the outcome is not going to be any better if you didn't do it.
Right. Exactly. And like the birds, they don't worry about where their food is going to come from. They don't worry about nurturing, caring for, and making sure their young is provided for. Nature works out in that fashion, and they don't die of old age. They don't die because of reasons that we do. But the beautiful thing as humans is we do get to experience those types of emotions, but learning how to have balance, even though I'm even hesitant to say balance, because when I think of balance, I'm always failing at balance. Like there's no perfect balance for an extended period of time, but it's this counterbalance. And if you have your priorities listed out and your top 3 priorities maybe, and you're selective, like does it serve any of these top 3 priorities? If the answer is no, then don't do it. Delegate it out. You know, that way there's not so much on your plate.
Fantastic point. Again, that was another point. I think you and I are just reading off the same sheet. Must be.
That's not true. We're really not doing that.
I was actually just going to talk about delegating chores and duties that it consumes you.
Yeah.
One has to start saying no and delegating, because we all can't be good at everything. We will be good at few things that we will do it at our best ability, but you can't do everything. You can't be everything to everybody, and you can't do everything at once. So exactly. Keep on talking about delegation, because that's one of my pet peeves. I think I have to listen to you too.
So often we get caught up in being the yes man or the yes woman. So I see moms do this continuously. They are superhuman and super powerful, but you don't have to be. You already are. You know, you don't have to do more. And then also the men trying to provide and do everything they can. And in some instances, the man or the woman is playing both roles as a parent as well. And then we've got, I do a lot of coaching from a business perspective, and part of the issue is keeping their schedules on point because they're saying yes to too many things, and they just get spread so thin, they're not able to do anything super well. You know, they're just super sporadic. And, but yes, so one thing that I help teach them is by, okay, what are your top 3 priorities? List your top 3. I know you have 10 priorities, but what's the top 3? You know, and if it doesn't serve those top 3 things, say no. So many people have a problem with saying no. So instead I say delegate them so they still get done. But it's not your, sometimes we say pay grade, sometimes we say it's just not your top priorities. So you do need to delegate that out so that it's still done and you can be the best you at what you do. And you're blessing somebody else to be the best them at what they do.
You know, it is so refreshing to hear this from you, because what we are, especially in today's society, we have taken so much on our shoulders trying to handle occupation, home life, being responsible parent, being responsible, doctors, or whatever you do in your life, that it has taken so much toll on our personalities. We haven't been nurtured to a level that one should be, because, you know, truly, we have to live. We have one shot at it, and this is it.
Right.
So now, just trying to get some word of wisdom from you, since you're such a amazing doctor. Now, imagine going back to the day you graduated from school.
Okay.
What would be the one piece of advice you'll tell yourself?
One piece of advice that I would tell myself is I would sit down with as many doctors, chiropractors, and otherwise, not just chiropractors, but sit down with everybody and really ask questions and visit with them about how they run their practice, what their ideas are, because so often we get stuck on this is how we do it. And there's so many varieties, and that way you can really capture what makes sense to you so that you're not living out someone else's practice dream. And that's something that I would say. And even now today, like, I sit down with as many diverse people as I possibly can. And I want to learn. I want to learn about business. So I like to sit down with people that are chiropractors, that are medical doctors, surgeons, people in the technology world, a vast way of doing business, right? So a variety of ways of doing business so that I can learn, so it's not always the same thing. And then on top of that, just learning about different religious views, learning about culture, learning about foods, and just don't stop learning. Once you graduate, the learning begins, the real life learning. So I would just say sit down and talk to as many people as you possibly can. I think having a mentor that challenges you, pushes you, but doesn't tell you exactly how to do things is key as well.
That's amazing. Having a mentor definitely keeps you honest, keeps you on point, and keeps you focused. And, yes. and the learning curve is truly a curve, and with many plateaus. Because if it was a straight line up, we won't need anybody.
Right.
So the mentors push you through those, plateaus when you hit, and gives you the ammunition to move to the next step.
Right. And I also have to say, whenever you graduate school, you have this vision and you've been visualizing or whatever. And you might be surprised when you hit those plateaus or even a dip, because that's possible too and almost necessary. I would just also say, don't quit that those dips or those plateaus is when you learn the most. And that's when you develop mental toughness, business toughness. That's whenever you develop the things that are actually going to launch you forward. And it's really, really difficult to understand that when you're in the middle of the mess. But those are the things that are going to really, really allow you to really help others and become your message. So just don't give up and think the worst of yourself during those times. And even from a health perspective, even with our patients, if they've lost 50 pounds, I have patients that then gain 30 pounds back or 60 pounds back, and they just feel like they can't show their face anymore. I just say, just jump right back in and show people that it could be done again, because there's more people that are in that situation of feeling like a failure than not. And that can really be the thing that saves someone else's life. So.
And I always say that even the same example that you use, now they have learned on what not to do. So second time around, they can stop doing what sabotage their gains the first time, which is a learning lesson for all of us.
Now they know exactly.
Now, Dr. Meyer, I'm so grateful for you to being here. Thank you for finally connecting with us. Now, any parting words for our viewers, our listeners?
I would say that definitely chiropractic is number one. If you have to choose one thing, chiropractic is part of it. Also, some things to add on to your health and wellness journey is fuel and fitness. Those are key to longevity as well. Connected with spirituality. Those kind of are really the three pillars to health. And we do have a Facebook group called Own Your Health Revolution, designed to give you the tools to take ownership of your health. And that's a free group where we have community for you. And I guess those are my parting words, Dr. Kaveh. Thank you so much for having me. And
Not
be
a
sure
problem.
to follow this man. He knows what he's talking about. And
Thank you so very much.
Yeah, you're making not just a movement, but there's so many ripples in the movement that you're doing, that you're having such a huge global impact. So thank you so much for having the courage to step out and step up to help your patients.
Thank you so very much. Now, where can our viewers find you? Give us all the social media, website, the handles, non-handles, everything.
Okay. The easiest place, I like to keep things simple. The easiest place is at drhollenmeyer.com, drhollenmeyer.com. We also have the wellnessdoctornetwork.com, and doctor is DR. And I'm on Instagram, Dr. Hollen Meyer _ WDRN for Wellness Doctor Network. I'm trying to think of all these things. And then I already told you guys about the group called Own Your Health Revolution. So that's probably the most simple way to say it.
Thank you so very much. Thank you for being with us. Bless you, and hopefully we will talk to you again on another perfect time.
Sounds awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Take care.